Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Headlines. I'm your presenter, Stephenson, Worme, and of course, we're in the aftermath of the Grenada election, which were held just a couple of days ago. The air is still hot, quite a bit of things, quite a bit of a buzz around. And so tonight on our program, we'll be looking at moving Grenada forward. Of course, we will look at the aftermath of the elections. We'll review it a bit, and we'll be looking as to the way forward. I've got with me this evening Dr. Wendy Grenada. Of course, she is a political science lecturer at the University of the West Indies. That's Caveville campus, am I right? Yeah, nice to have you. And I was just commenting a little early on as to how pretty she looks. She's obviously a beautiful lady. And we've got on Zoom Dr. Dessima Williams, who holds a PhD and a master's degree in international relations. And she is a former ambassador to the United Nations, of course, Grenada ambassador. We have her here this evening. We had her on the program when we were, of course, releasing the results on Thursday night. And of course, we got also Tarlie Francis, Grenadian living in St. Kitts, a financial services professional, a professional consultant with 20 years of experience in public sector budgeting, debt management, tax administration, corporate fundraising, business management. So all of these titles, they're deposited upon his name. So, Doc, good evening, rather, and welcome to Beyond the Headlines.
Good evening, Pastor Worme, and good evening to your viewers and listeners, and to my fellow panelists. I'm happy to be here.
Right, and it's okay that we could go first name, is all right?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yes. Wendy's okay.
Wendy's okay. So, good evening, Tarlie and Dessima. Good evening to all two of you.
Back again. To join our analysis,
we're not getting Dr. Dessima Williams's microphone well, so we'll see whether our technical personality here can look at that. But meanwhile, we go across to Tarlie. Good evening, Tarlie.
Yes, good evening, Pastor. Thank you very much for having me, and it's nice to be with you once again. I know we had a few minutes on the decision day, and I'm glad to be invited to be with you again today.
Okay, well, we would know shortly whether the microphone issue with Dr. Dessima Williams is sorted out. Once that's sorted out, we'll have her with us. So let's look, let's just back up a little bit, Doc, and we're going to look at the date of the elections. It was June 23rd. How important was that date in the context, from the context of the two major parties? Was that date, in your estimation, an advantage to one party, disadvantage to the other? Or do you think that the date didn't hold any advantages or disadvantages at all? What's your thoughts?
Well, when you say the date, are you speaking about the 23rd June in terms of the date itself, or are you speaking about when the time
frame?
Well, the truth is, for the then opposition National Democratic Congress, it was a very short window to organize, and I think the very fact that it was a short window propelled them to do what they had to do right. So the significance of the date was that there was a very short period of time to organize for a political campaign. Of course, you had incumbent advantage in that the New National Party, of course, they were the ones calling the date. The Prime Minister was the former Prime Minister setting the date. So I think it meant that the opposition party had to catch up in terms of mounting a campaign that could then lead to the electoral outcome that it wanted.
Tarlie, what's your thoughts?
I would agree in principle with Dr. Grenada's assessment. For me, the date, it only had that advantage for the incumbent in the sense that, they were already mobilized. It didn't really have the same advantage for the then opposition, but one would realize that the longer the date were going to be in the future, is the more prepared the opposition, who had already begun to pick up momentum, would have been able to, to become. And so, on the other hand, I would say that all Grenada really knew the election was coming up. It's just that the opposition at the time was, ready to the extent that it was and was not. And the threat of an election being so close and you not being prepared would have propelled them and their supporters, their benefactors and so on, to put some more oil in the wheel, so to speak, so that they can come up to speed with the incumbent. That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. But let's assume that the elections were, let's say, December of 2021 or January 2022. Tarlie, your thoughts? Do you think the results may have been the same?
Again, venturing here, but not being a political analyst and not having the benefit of Peter Wickham's wisdom and experience, I would say that would have been a taller order for the then opposition to match up, prepare itself, and to be able to stand up alongside the machinery of the incumbent. So 2021, early and so on, the only thing we can see there is that there would have been playing in a bigger factor in play would then have been the COVID situation and the general feelings around COVID, whether it was time to live, not to live, the sentiments regarding, vaccinations and all that. Those things would have been more in the picture. But from the political organizational point of view, it would have been a taller order had they not have the few more months, I would say.
Okay, we hope that we've established good connection with Dr. Dessima Williams. Dr. Williams, let's see how your audio is going. Are you there?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think we still have some audio disorder. Yes. Oh, okay. We're going to try to see if we can get that sorted out, and once we do so, we're going to have Dr. Williams on. The NMP, Dr. Grenada had two newcomers on their platform, and the NDC practically had most newcomers. How well did they do, seeing that they had a rather inexperienced team? That's the NDC.
Well, the outcome of the general elections answers your question. They ran a very, very excellent campaign in a very short time with a slate of newcomers. And to move from 0 to 9, I think it was just amazing. I think we should take the opportunity to congratulate the new Prime Minister, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell and his team, and also to congratulate Dr. Keith Mitchell and his team, all the candidates who contested. I'm happy that we do in fact have an opposition, because that's very healthy for democracy. We've not had one for a long time.
I know.
Yes, so I think the campaign, it was a short period, but the use of social media, the use of the town hall meetings, I think it just energized people. Both parties were very energized. It was a very interesting campaign, and we saw the outcome.
You talk about social media. There's some statistics that are floating around that suggest that the viewership of the NDC seemed to be triple times more than that of the NDC in terms of comments and views and the actual ads and all of that were outside there. Was that a little surprising to you?
You said that the statistics show that the NDC, the
right, viewership of what they put out.
No, it's not surprising.
Why
the message was different. The political campaigning was on issues. I think for the first time I saw a political campaign that focused predominantly on issues, and I think that captivated many persons. The social media campaign, it was quite dynamic. And it was refreshing, a kind of techno-democracy that I think people yearned for something different, and the young people were energized on both sides. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we were seeing, a new kind of political campaigning, mm-hmm. which, yes.
Did you see that, for example, in the Barbados election? Was there any similarities?
Yes, the social media, the use of social media really made a difference in terms of how young people engaged politics. I think that's something that may be a new trend going forward in terms of the platforms that are used to capture the imagination of the young, and I think that's very good. Yeah.
Tarlie, I'm going to come across to you. Any comments in regards to the power of the social network?
Yes. I mean, we have to admit that the COVID experience really brought a lot of people onto social media as their major way of communicating during that time, and also socializing very much so as well. And people who would not have had that as a place to go for information and experiences like a political campaign, they now, coming through COVID, actually developed the wherewithal, not only the young, but even the middle-aged and so on. Because the campaign on social media, we should also include the things like the WhatsApp and so on, which is really how you communicate your messages. It's no longer just regular, ordinary texting. A WhatsApp message is now a text. Let me mention too that you see the new voters that came onto the list, as you would appreciate, would most likely have been in the vast majority among the younger persons, again, who are growing up with the social media. And so the mechanism to get to them would have been not only house to house, but largely where they are. And the places they are really are on these platforms, the social media platform. So I think, yes, that played a big role, and it would continue to play a big role. If you are speaking of elections like the St. Lucia and the St. Kitts one that were done during COVID, in fact, much of the campaigning where there could not have been rallies had to be done by virtual meetings, assemblies, so to speak. Artists had to be singing to the camera, and 10 people in the room and so forth. And this sort of translated into what we had on the lead up to the 23rd. Because if you look at it, both campaigns are using websites. The websites are professionally designed. You have things like that. And so I think that, yes, it played a big role, and it is something that will continue to play a big role in the period to come.
Dr. Williams, I think we've got you safe and at hand now. Welcome again. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting me again. And I'm in St. Andrews, and everything works in St. Andrews, so I don't understand this glitch. But I also want to say congratulations to the people of Grenada for voting in what I think was a 60+ % turnout. And congratulations to the organizers of the election, the Parliamentary Elections Office, and so for the international observers noted that by and large the elections were conducted well. There were concerns about challenged persons not having full and adequate access. But in terms of peacefulness, I don't remember that we have ever had trouble during an actual voting day in Grenada. So we kept up that tradition well. And I want to thank all those who ran for office. I really think it's a big challenge to run for office in what is understood as sort of crazy electioneering. And lastly, let me just give a big and hearty congratulations to the winner, the National Democratic Congress, and its leader, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. I think we're in for a very needed, I would say, and welcome change, and an interesting journey over the next few years. So congratulations to all who will form both the government and the opposition.
Well, we obviously will be talking about that interesting journey over the next few years. But while Dr. Dessima Williams was talking, that question just quickly popped into my mind, which I think I would ask you, and maybe the others would chime in on this. How do you rate Grenada in terms of intensity, political intensity, especially in preparation for an elections? Do you see it as intensive as the other Caribbean countries? I don't know if you know very much about it. What about the intensity?
Oh, yes.
Is there anything less or more? Or
no, I think when you think about the Caribbean, in terms of political competition, it's generally a two-party system.
Right.
And because it's the first past the post system where the winner takes all, it means, in fact, these are high stakes. So where you have high stakes, of course, there is intensity. Whether you go to St. Kitts, where Tarlie Francis is, or Barbados, or Trinidad, Caribbean elections are generally high-stake elections because the winner gets all. And elections generally across the world. But I think in the Caribbean, we spice it up a bit. And it's quite intense.
Tarlie, is it intensive? Like, I mean, when you compare it to, let's say, St. Kitts, obviously you know about it. What's it like?
Very intense. St. Kitts and I'm familiar with St. Lucia as well. Very, very intense. Grenada's June 23rd was far more intense on this occasion because of the dynamics that were playing out, especially with the new comers galvanizing themselves into a formidable force, which you could really feel that intensity coming on as the events begun to occur. I also think another factor too is the newcomer factor that you were speaking about. I mean, this really had new persons bringing out even new voters as well, and working their way around people who would not have voted in the last election. And I think that level of intensity was it was very high. This election was different from another when you would say, yes, a lot of house to house was done and so on. Because of the social media as well, everybody was knowing every statement that was made last night by 1 a.m. in the morning, the latest. So that sort of increased the intensity as well. And there was a little picong here and there going on that really caused the thing to be a little more, as Dr. Gwyneth says, spicy. Well, we in the spice aisle of in any case, so for all good reason.
Okay, now let's look at the two leaders. We want to look at them. One, experience, one who has been on the political scene since 1972. That's a long time. I won't tell you how old I was at that time. And then you've got one who is relatively unknown, unprecedented, leapt onto the scene from figuratively nowhere onto the political scene and took the country by storm. Let's just look for a few minutes at these two leaders and the sort of impact that they had on the result of the election. So we had a young man who came. Many people did not know about him, relatively unknown, known for his law expertise and prowess, of course, but nothing beyond that. It's quite interesting, though, that once he came onto the scene, you heard his comments on various topics, whether it's sports or economics or legal affairs, international affairs, seemed to be sort of wide range. And then you had an old stalwart who has been around for such a long time, handling the political front, Grenada here, for such a long time. Doc, we had two persons of contrasting ages, but seemingly both of whom had the ability to draw people, draw listenership, draw attention.
Mm-hmm. What they had in common was a surname.
Yes,
they had a surname in common, but perhaps that was the only thing they had in common. In terms of their styles were very different. The message was very different. The methods used were very different. Both of them were able to draw crowds, So it's quite interesting. I would want to do a study to understand this very peculiar kind of elections. But the two leaders were very different. What they had in common was a surname. You know, one was older, more experienced, the other younger, with fresh, bright ideas. Yeah, one was, in terms of the style, in terms of electioneering, you know, is the entertainment and, you know, drawing the base in a particular way. I think the NNP and Dr. Mitchell used the old style of campaigning, while the younger Mitchell and the younger NDC team used a more kind of modern style of campaigning. Both, however, were able to attract their base, and I think the difference was made by the sort of independent, in the middle kind of soft kind of voter who would swing one way or the other. And I think they wanted to hear ideas more, and perhaps that made the difference.
Dr. Williams, your thoughts on these two charismatic leaders?
Thank you. I think, as Wendy has already said, there were different styles. And although they had much in common, it is clear that the younger Mitchell, or Prime Minister now, was able to convince the population that he had something more than style, that he had a program, in fact, that they wanted. And it was very simply presented as change and as transformation. And perhaps, you know, it was a moment where I think Grenadians really were looking for a change of pace, a change of an agenda, and with it a change of style, so that the new leader brought hope. And that's always a very powerful appeal to people, to think that we could do something not just new, but better. And he presented it in a very simple but very convincing way. I think, you know, he reminded me and reminds me of a combination of Maurice Bishop with the message, you know, change, transformation, forward, and so on. And also Obama. I lived in the States a bit, you know, quite a bit. And I think the Obama factor in common there was the appeal to younger voters, but to all voters. The appeal to substance and meaning in politics, rather than maybe you know, platitudes or past promises. The appeal of involvement as a mass movement, especially I think in contributions, time and money, that every person had a place in the campaign sort of thing, rather than just political elites. I'm not saying that the NDC didn't have political managers and elites and so on, but there was an appeal that went out to a broad base for real substantive involvement. And so in that sense, I think both the leadership, the leaders were similar but different. I mean, I know that I felt right here in St. Andrews, a lot of newness could come from this new leader, and newness that frightened some people, and newness that excited others.
Yeah. Tarlie, what's your thoughts?
Well, I share some of the views, but I will take a perspective like this, right? I think what we saw in Grenada, and I would be the first to read Dr. Grenade's draft when she does the research. What we saw in Grenada, I think, is going back to the word she used earlier, political competition. This, what we just went through, I think will be studied and referred to when someone has to look at what is the role of political competition in the economic development of a people. I think this is what that really showed out. Now, the two leaders, I would stay with you and answer that question and say that, yes, they were leaders. They are leaders in their own right. That is true. And the new leader of the NDC actually showed in his galvanizing of his own internal party, as I said on Decision Day, and of the people who are supporters of his party and the voters who would be willing to take his party's agenda, that he could actually carry that leadership responsibility on his shoulders. So we are not in doubt when we speak of a newcomer there about the ability and the capability to carry the responsibilities that he is now taken on. But I think what the 23rd has showed us is the role of political competition in economic development, because what Grenadians would have been voting for majoritarily there, those who were with the incumbent would have been voting for the trust or the confidence or the rewards or so in relation to what they already know. Those who would vote with the then opposition is actually listening to the message and finding in it that there is growth and development ahead of us if we use this man and if we use this man's agenda. So the competition between the two becomes a competition in politics that would contribute to economic development, because what the people are seeing there is a better economy for themselves. I think I would agree with Dr. Grenade in combining her two earlier responses in saying that political competition is really essential, because you don't want to not have the opportunity to have the selection of the policymakers continuously give you policymakers who are not having more and new advances in the development of the country for the individuals in the society as a whole. And I think that is what we saw there, a voting and election process which says, let us select this leader which we can see politically is good, but who we can see from the message is going to bring us some economic development, that would not destroy whatever the other man had given in his years, but would build on it. And that's what I believe when I said last time that we have a society that has shown a level of maturity, that it would not be easy to just put your finger on it and say this is what it is. But the results of the election, now in retrospect, we see is showing that.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to come back.
You want to make a quick?
I just wanted to make a quick.
Yeah, we're gonna just take your quick thoughts, and then we're gonna take a commercial break.
Because I wanted to say, and agreeing with both Dessima and Tarlie, at some point societies throw up leaders.
Yes.
And person, place, and time come together. And I think what the Deacon Mitchell, or now Prime Minister, did, it brought together person, place, and time in the context of incumbent fatigue and incumbent complacency. So on the one hand, you had incumbent fatigue. People were saying, oh, the NNB has been there long. And complacency, where I think there was a kind of confidence that the NNP had that they would govern for a longer time yet. So I think when you think about person, place, and not in every generation, perhaps in every 10 generations, a society throws up a leader that is extraordinary.
Okay, just stick that pin right there.
Yes.
We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back in our discussion, moving Grenada forward on Beyond the Headlines.
When a hurricane watch or warning is in effect, act quickly. Listen to the media for official information. Set your refrigerator to the coldest temperature to help food last longer. Move electrical devices from areas where they may get wet. During a hurricane, stay indoors. Be mindful that you may lose power, and keep listening to the media. Unplug all electrical devices and take off your main switch. This will reduce the potential for damage or fire. Avoid opening refrigerators and freezers, as food will thaw more quickly. Assume all wires are energized and stay away from them. In the event of island-wide damage, GRENLEC will restore power to critical facilities first. These include hospitals, police, fire departments, and water supply pumps. For more information, please visit us at grenlec.com.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Do more with your new GUT Credit Union Visa debit card, which gives you access to your cash at any Connex or Visa certified ATMs locally and internationally. Make your payments with a tap of your card using the contactless feature and have the freedom to make purchases locally, online, or overseas whenever you travel, anywhere Visa is accepted. Experience the enhanced security fraud protection through the Visa chip technology. If you don't have your new GUT Credit Union Visa International debit card, speak to any one of our representatives today to do more. Your new GUT Credit Union Visa International debit card, a smarter way to access your cash. More smart, more secure.
They are the few, the strong, the elite. Grenada, get ready as our sporting gladiators go for gold and glory at the World Championships. Follow every throw, stride, and jump from July 15th to the 24th. Capture the action daily on GBN television. It's the World Championships. The dream continues.
James is going to win it.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now! We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carriacou. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
Here is a little known fact. There is only one place in Grenada that you can get an MRI scan done. That place is Spicile Imaging Center. Yes, Grenada, that's the truth. Other centers could offer you other scans, but Spicile Imaging provides an authentic MRI scan. Here's another little known fact. Spicile Imaging has 3 centers. We operate at Grenville, the Carnage, and at the Ocean House, Grand Anse. We provide the widest range of laboratory tests and services. CT scans, x-rays, mammograms, ultrasounds, and a host of other services. We are fully staffed by a team of family doctors and specialists. Call us today at 444-7679 or 406-1500 or visit any of our 3 locations. Spicile Imaging, from seeing the doctor to getting lab tests, scans, and pharmacy services. We are here to take care of you.
Total is one of the world's largest oil companies with a top quality line of lubricants. Total Lubricants has a full product line from passenger cars, motorcycle, heavy industrial equipment, mining, trucking, agriculture, and manufacturing machines and vehicles. Total Lubricants, winning championships in motorsports, including Formula 1 and World Rally Championships. Total Lubricants are available at all Rubis service stations, leading automotive shops, and distributed by Huggins.
And welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. We're talking about moving Grenada forward, but of course we were just reviewing what took place over the last recent days, building up to the elections. And of course, in case you've missed it, I don't believe anybody missed it at all. The NDC came out victorious. So we're looking at the way forward. What I would ask now, Dr. Grenada, is the fact that the NMP, they have lost the election, ill-afforded. What's the future for this party?
Well, in a 2-party system, I think political parties remake themselves. They evolve through time. And I think once the NNP can get its succession plan in place, it will remain a formidable political party. I don't see its demise at all. The NNP got, 48% of the popular vote. So I think it would continue. It has a very strong base. It will continue to be very competitive in Grenada's elections. But of course, that depends a lot on the succession plan and how that plays itself out within the party, whether the party could remain cohesive as it goes forward.
I just wanted to see.
Yes, and in regards to the role that the veteran, I mean Dr. Keith Mitchell, has played over the years, what sort of role would he have to play now, futuristically, now, in terms of moving the party forward into the future? Does he have a significant role in that succession planning?
Well, I like to see political parties as democratic institutions. And democratization of political parties mean, in fact, that the people, the members of the party, would be the ones to determine the leadership. Now, that being said, mentorship becomes very important in succession planning. So I would see Dr. Mitchell playing a very important role in terms of mentoring and coaching the new leadership going forward. But I would imagine that there would be elections within the political party structure that would in fact determine who would be the new political leader and the executive. But I see the NNP continuing to play a very important role in our two-party system.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Williams, could you chime in here, your thoughts?
Yes, we are in an emerging multi-party system in Grenada. It is a dominant two-party system, but
okay.
And we've seen that in the past, small parties that come and fall off.
We're losing you in the frame. Dr. Williams, sorry, we're losing you in the frame, so if you can bend your head.
Hello?
Yeah, you're fine.
Hello?
You're fine now. Go right ahead.
Yes, we've seen small parties come in the past and disappear. And from the voter turnout, the votes that some of these other parties got, they're challenged. But I think we are seeing this emergence of new energies, and that will continue. I think I agree with Wendy that the NNP is a major institution in Grenada. 47.7% of the vote is not to be sneezed at. The victory is really almost 2,500 votes, more or less. So it is a major player. And although, in some parts of Grenville, the joke going around is you can't find anybody who said that they voted for NNP. It's a joke. It's not true. But the meaning of that is that many persons who voted for the NNP are also caught up, if caught up is the right word, in the wave of interest and expectation and hope around the NDC. So that could continue and swell the ranks of the NDC. I think that is similar to what happened in the revolution for some part of it. But we could also see, a digging in remaining in the party as a new leader necessarily has to emerge. So we are in early days still, and I think we have to wait and see what the opposition NNP actually does on the ground and internally.
All right. Tarlie, what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree that that party, unless something really unexpectedly dramatic happens, that party would remain. The political parties in the democracies, their strengths are residing in three places, sometimes more in one than in another. It's in the leadership, it's in the party structure or machinery, and its organization, and in its policies and programs. In its programs, which ends up in the policies of the state if it wins the elections. So in the NNP, you can see there is structure, this last election is showing that they were not without structure. They actually have a formidable party structure that Dr. Mitchell has been able to work with and to carry and have it carry him through all these years. And he had in him this leadership, which I think would remain in as much as he is no longer prime minister. He's not, and he has to get a successor. But I think his role will remain an important one in his party. Probably his role should also remain important to the country, because there would be some elements of international and global representation and goodwill that he would have built up, that for love of Grenada, he should be able to still, in good faith may. And in terms of the policies and programs, I mean, you look at the manifesto, you see a set of projects in there, and some were funded, and names of funders were mentioned, and all that sort of thing. So I think that that party would remain a strong party, and the numbers were already given in terms of the votes that they received. But it would be foolhardy to think that NNP is done because of the results of this election. If that answers your question, Pastor, then that's the perspective.
Right. We don't seem to have any particular name standing out per se in terms of succeeding Dr. Mitchell. Nobody really stands out. And of course, the person who deputized for him over the years in Mr. Gregory Bowen, no longer in that capacity, and of course lost his seat. Anybody, any new blood, do you see anybody really standing up to the plate or having created such an impression in the party that could possibly say, hey, we might find a good new leader in this, whether he or she might be male or female, as the case may be? Tarlie, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, on Decision Day, I mentioned this point. One of the problems with most of the parties in the Caribbean is that we do not have a mechanism, we do not have a system, and so we do not really operate in a manner that allows for succession to go just seamlessly. That is a big problem. Perhaps this is also one of the problems that NNP has to analyze for itself. You know, how with such a very strong party structure, how is it that you come through life without, having some shoulders being rubbed?
The following is a statement.
I beg your pardon?
No, go ahead, Tarlie. Just a technical.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's an interference. Okay. Yeah. So I think that it is, I mean, it's very difficult to say here is the leader, but there is a reason, and the reason is that was not put up. We were not seeing it along the way. And I am not even sure if you had a panelist who is on the executive or membership of NNP that they would be able to answer you directly like that. Probably Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Keith Mitchell knows who is going to be, handing over to or ushering in. But I don't, for myself, where I sit, I'm very sorry, but I'm not even able to do that. But it's an answer which is not only about the NNP, and it's not only about political parties in Grenada. This is a problem we've seen in the Caribbean over and over again. And in some cases, it was so bad that as soon as the party lost election, then the confusion started and the jostling started, and they could not recover for 2 or 3 elections after that. So it is something that we have to take into consideration. And I would say that, brilliant minds like Dr. Grenades and so, have to really work on these, because it's part of the transformation that even the NDC has been speaking about that has to be achieved in the polity of our region. But if we can start in Grenada and lead again in this area, it would be very nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Tarlie. Dr. Grenade, now we've been doing quite a bit of reviewing. Let's come right home now. Mm-hmm. The new Prime Minister sat on his desk today. Obviously, I was going to cross the carnage and I was riding just behind him, so I had about 600 yards riding behind him. Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask, the task ahead has to be a pretty tough one, considering, of course, we've got internationally, we've got a war on hand that has affected the world, or is in fact affecting the world, and things are not the norm, so to speak. So he would have quite a bit of challenge. Not too many countries are boasting about economic growth. That obviously is a concern, and Grenada hasn't had any significant economic growth. The way forward for this administration, unquestionably, it's going to be a tough one ahead, won't it?
No, I want to answer that question by sort of broadening the discussion. You know, on the 7th of February 2024, Grenada would celebrate 50 years, the 50th anniversary of independence. And I think despite the crises, because crises are not new, there are opportunities for us to reimagine what type of economy, what type of polity, what type of society. So as we think about going forward, crises would always be there. What becomes important? Leadership, thinking, and I don't like to say thinking outside of the box, because when you think outside of the box still creates cognitive parameters for you. Remove the box.
Okay.
And be creative. Don't keep your eyes just on the crisis. Think about what can we get from this crisis. So I am agreeing that it will be challenging, but I don't see the challenges as insurmountable. Caribbean countries from inception had to grapple with crises, and crises would never be out of our way in terms of as we grapple with our developmental challenges. What is new? We've always had crises. How do we lead through crises? How do we understand that change is incremental and that transformation is long-term? I think what has to happen, the expectations of citizens have to be managed. Because you don't wake up one morning and change happens. It doesn't happen like that. So I think in asking what type of society, citizenship becomes very important. How do we see ourselves? How do we define ourselves as Grenadians? How do we present ourselves to the world? What kind of society do we want? And when we ask those large questions, we work through crises. And a big part of managing and overcoming, because we've come from a tradition of overcoming. You know, sometimes we speak about plantation slavery and we look at our history. And I always like to say to students, we have an instinct for overcoming. We have an instinct, an innate resilience. So I don't like to be too concerned with crises. I like to ask, what can we learn from them? And if we understand that we are a resilient people, and as we continue to build resilience, because we don't only have to look for resilience in the economic realm in terms of economic growth, culturally, spiritually, we stand, we withstand, and we overcome. So I think it takes a whole of society approach. A whole of society approach in terms of a community-minded people, where we have participatory democracy, where we are engaged as citizens, where we engage in public education, in civics, and we work through crises as a community. And I think that becomes important. Government, whether it's, and you know, sometimes we think about government just as the executive branch. We have three branches of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. So the opposition members are also part of government. And if we see government in its entirety, and if we understand the role of citizenship, citizens, what are we expected to do as citizens? As a new government is trying to shape a new kind of transformative agenda. I think it's a brilliant opportunity for us to ride the crises, look for opportunities, be creative, be innovative, do things better. And I'm hopeful and I'm confident.
Okay, now does this sound familiar to you? there must be an empowering impulse to address the needs of Grenada's poor. Safety nets for the most marginalized and vulnerable cannot be dismissed as unwarranted handouts. Yet there must be a progressive, transformative agenda that promotes skill development, holistic education, entrepreneurship, and wealth generation to break the cycle of poverty, illiteracy, and dependency on the government. You ever heard that?
Sounds very familiar.
Well, yes, you wrote that, and I thought that that was really powerful, and I extracted it, and I thought I'd just throw that back to you. Care to just amplify a bit here?
Yes, I always say that we have to begin with our consciousness as a people. Who are we? Who are we? What should Grenada mean to us, and what does it mean to us? If on June 22nd, you loved Grenada, you cared about what Grenada became, on June 23rd, you should still love Grenada. And I'm saying that to say, when a new party wins an election and forms the executive branch of government, it means if you care about Grenada, you would want to see that party, not that party, that government succeed. And I think that is where we need a lot of transformational thinking. Because if we care about this place, and if we see Grenada not through the eyes of our party political loyalties and affiliations, but if we say, for the children and those yet unborn, what do we want Grenada to become? What must more look like? Like I asked on the program I did 2 weeks ago, do we not want more? And what must more look like? So at the end of the day, it starts with us as citizens, because what the June 23rd elections taught us was that power really does belong with the people. Power does really belong with the people. And we have a lot to do to empower ourselves, to become more, to think beyond where we are, to aspire. And I think that is what Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell captured. That's what he was able, it resonated with people. Young people were looking at the television and seeing somebody saying to them, you could become more. Poverty mustn't be a natural state. You can get a skill, And I think as we go forward, thinking about the next 50 years of independence, we must want a new kind of society. And this is an opportunity to reimagine a new Grenada, and not just to reimagine it, but to make it happen. But it must be a collective effort, a whole of society rethinking about what nationhood is, what governance is. And when we think about these things, that's why I would want to see civil society become more active in engaging in public education, the academic community, building consciousness in terms of what does this country mean. Let's not see the country in terms of how we vote, because we are citizens before we are voters. We vote for one day, but we live after that. How do we want to live? What does it mean to be human? And these are some of the things that we have to ask ourselves. How do we not break the human spirit? How do we not otherize? How do we live in community? And this becomes very important for me, for the way forward.
Brilliant, really brilliant. And I would give the other panelists opportunities to talk here, because back in the days of the revolution, which was some time ago, I can't remember living through the period of the revolution for that 4.5-year period without hearing the word patriotism or patriot or patriotic, hearing these words. It was a daily caption. You heard it all the time. Strangely, in the aftermath of the revolution, we have not heard the word with regularity. It's been scattered here and there. Obviously, Dr. Dessima Williams, we need to get back that sense of national pride, and we need to remember that this country belongs to us. And it's not a party that would ensure its overall development and success story, but rather everybody holding hands together and trumping up, so to speak, to ensure that we have success stories. You'd agree, won't you?
Yes, I can. I think the ethos of the NDC goes in that direction, and it's what happened on the 23rd was really the exercise of a choice. When they spoke about crises, and others have spoken about a very uncertain future, the climate crisis, the COVID onset, the economic fallout from the COVID lockdowns and so on, that there are many challenges, known and unknown, on the horizon. And that was also seen as an opportunity to stay the course rather than to venture into something new. And again, although the margin is relatively slim, but significant, I think that the population would have voted to take a risk. We're going into a new future, an uncertain future, but we need something new, or we want something new, and we're willing to take a risk to achieve it. And what is that something they wanted? Well, it was what, in large part, a bit of what was offered, and I think the NDC offered sort of three opportunities. One is an old legacy, both of the outgoing NNP, as well as governments and parties from before. The NDC also, in its manifesto, which is sort of laid out what vision it had. And also, as I understand it, and even recently, people what it is they want. And therefore, there's some guidance for the new government as to how it should move forward. Now, I think that this notion of patriotism plays right into that, because both in what it has offered in the manifesto, as well as what ordinary people on the street seem to be saying, is that they want a more internal emphasis. They want a focus on what Grenadians can do for Grenada to be dominant, rather than to see our future as lying in the hands of external actors, even if they are good intention. That is a supreme statement of patriotism, that we're willing to take risks, we're willing to we're willing to rebuild. We want to put our shoulders to the wheel, to have, the reduction in poverty, the reduction in unemployment, the restart of agriculture, the protection of the vulnerable, the social services that must expand, raise the standard of living. And therefore, I think we will see a patriotism that is practiced. That is really the version that perhaps the population voted for now. How does the NDC go about that? And clearly, the Prime Minister has already called that everyone come together and try to build a government, a people, a country. And he has also said that he hasn't said, actually suggesting that managing expectations is important when he has said that. But I think we have to change expectations as part of the managing of them, that we don't want to expect the same, the government would have to, manage expectations. If you want more, one different or one better, you have the front line of that. It's not going to be given to you. And I think that's a very important strategy that has to be put in place if, in fact, there's going to be a rise in patriotism, if, in fact, there's going to be the outcome, the material, emotional, and other outcomes of patriotism. And let me say this last comment here is that emphasis to the fore. And whether these internal forces, physical or emotional, that our capacity, as when you said our resilience, our ability, our vision has to dominate. And then others can partner with us, whether it's through the SIDS network, the hemispheric network, the global institutions, and so on. We Grenadians have to understand that our resources are strong. They're not weak, and we're always out there trying to get them beefed up externally, that our resources are strong, but they can be stronger with external. So I think it is that sort of patriotism that is going to be called for, and that's what will bring about the transformation. The manifesto, the legacies to build on, and the preparedness and vision of the population.
All right, Tarlie, when we come back, we're going to be starting with you, but we must take a quick break now. I'm going to let listeners know that a little later on in the program, we will open up the line so that you can give us a call. We want to be interactive. We want people to share their thoughts and their comments. We'll be right back.
Adonis Menswear, located at Spiceland Mall, Grand Anse, specializes in quality men's clothing. They offer the best in casual and formal wear. During the month of June, in celebration of Father's Day, Adonis offers discounts on selected items: suits, pants, shirts, socks, and more. All items on discount will have a green label. So, what are you waiting for? Shop at Adonis Menswear today for outfits to suit any occasion. They're open Monday to Saturday. For more information, call 439-1212.
Carnival costume? Check. Monday wear? Check. Unlimited premium drinks? Check. Meals, a security, cool-down bus, mobile restrooms, plus Vaughn and other international performances? Check, 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 and check. The Carnival Mass Band Nirvana is ready for the road for Spice Mass. Backline, midline, and frontline costumes for men and women. Nirvana is the perfect state of happiness on the road for Carnival Monday and Tuesday. Register now at nirvanaempire.com. Call or WhatsApp us on 407-INFO. That's 407-4636. Instagram at Nirvana Empire. View our costumes at the Nirvana Showroom, La Marquis Complex, Grand Anse. Play Mass with Nirvana.
Have you heard about the new soft weave bathroom tissue with total hygiene? As hygiene and safety have taken center stage, our bathroom tissue is now manufactured with 3 different technologies to offer the best protection for you and your family. UVC light technology for a safe and effective disinfection process, eliminating 99.9% of microorganisms. Also, production at high temperatures, killing all types of germs and bacteria. And it's pH controlled with delicate fibers to prevent irritation for even sensitive skin. Soft Weave Total Hygiene Bathroom Tissue, available in supermarkets and shops island-wide. Visit Soft Weave Caribbean Facebook or Instagram pages for more information.
Introducing Color by Sissons. 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 Color by Sissons.
This summer, make your dreams a reality with the Co-op Bank Summer Sizzle Loan. Get up to $35,000 and qualify to win amazing prizes. You can win day passes for 2 or vouchers for school supplies. Take that trip you've been longing for. Enjoy the carnival season. Have the wedding of your dreams. Make those home renovations or send your children back to school well prepared and fully equipped. Make this summer sizzle with the Co-op Bank Summer Sizzle Loan. Visit your nearest retail banking unit for more details. Special terms and conditions apply.
Welcome home.
When you need your
prescription filled, or you require non-prescribed medication, supplements, or all your personal needs, visit Gittins Healthcare at locations on Wall Street, Grand Anse, Victoria Street, Grenada, and Central Deputy Street, Wharf. Gittins Healthcare aims to provide an exceptional personalized pharmacy experience. Additionally, children under 5 and adults 55 years and over will enjoy 10% discount on purchases of $20 and over on prescription medication. Stop settling for less. Visit Gittins Healthcare, where your health is our priority.
And when come back here to Beyond the Headlines, I did promise to have Tarlie chime in concerning the way forward. So Tarlie, I know you have quite a few things you'd want to say about the whole idea of moving forward and some of the dynamics involved. So let's hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Pastor. The truth of the matter is that the expectations will be high, especially among the supporters of the party that now forms the government, and generally of the population that, made that change happen. For the population who did not even support the NDC in this election, those people will still expect, and the expectations will also be high. So I think there is a lot to really put there in the advice about managing expectations. That should not be taken lightly. That's a very, very important thing. You, especially your supporters, will give you time, and 1 year, 2 years, and so on. Eventually, things that don't happen that were expected would come around to be things that would be like a millstone on the party's neck. You will have to do first of all that recognition that the expectation is high. Now, much of the things that the expectation is high about are things that cannot be done without growth in our economy, without economic development. And for this reason, I believe that this party has to, going forward, be thinking long-term. Long-term, think about the political economy of development in the country. Make sure that what we say regarding growth and advancement and well-being and education and health services for people are things that are within a long-term program that are, strictly speaking, an economic development program. The social speech is made. Now we need the economic capacity to carry that. And so I think, when I say economic development, let me just simplify to say that I'm talking about a very dedicated effort to create and to retain jobs. That'd be number one. And not any jobs, but jobs, quality jobs, good jobs, jobs for job satisfaction for people at the various levels, the various skills, and so on. Secondly, economic development, we're speaking about growth. And for growth, you also mean growth in the tax base, because that's where you get your revenue from. Mm-hmm. So economic development also means increasing the standard of living of people. And I think this is a central place that this administration has to focus on, and focus on that long-term economic development of the country. And then you put all the facets in place to be able to get there. And that is because, the expectations would only be achieved with the capacity of the economy to really finance those things. We used to be when roads and build roads and another project there and so on were the key things. But if you listen to what is said on social media and what is understood when people are reacting to Prime Minister Dick Mitchell's presentations before at his town hall meetings and today as the commentaries go, people don't just want the community centers, they want vision centers. They want programs in those centers. People don't just want the infrastructure, they want programs to go with infrastructure for self-development. So I think we have to take some of the insights, the political insights that we have, and bring them also into the economics of the country so that we can get sustainable economic development. And so policies become important. One of the past problems and problems throughout the Caribbean is that when we come, we tear down what was there because we want to put in what we have or what we say we're going to do. I think we should also recognize that some things that were there, they were keeping. Some of the relations we have internationally, they worth nurturing. And some of the prospects we have for foreign direct investment, they actually need developing so that we get new capital into the economy. This, I think, really is where we have to focus, to ensure that we have policies that in there that are, and the challenges for policies usually really is finding the right instrument, the right policy instruments to take, to know what policies outcome would be, know what they would be. And even as you know what we would be able to implement them in the best possible ways. All this is within the political economy of our development, which I think is where the focus has to go. We know the education, we know so many of the other things, but I think we have to work quite a lot on it. And for me, going forward, definitely has to have these two prongs. The long term, which is working on economic development and bringing everything into them. And I know, for example, one of the candidates now, an MP, used to work in that direction quite a lot. He had a thing called the medium-term economic strategy paper that was part of the political economy of our development. That was toned down. That's something that you need to find the replacement for, or you need to find, bring it back or find a new version of it. And shortly, in the medium and the near term, we have to work on what I have heard both in the acceptance speech and in the town hall said already. The ethical, the social, and the political aspects of the development of our people is also the ethical, the political, and the social aspects of the development of our economy. The idea is not simply to change people. The idea is to ensure that systems are in place so that we can have a sustainable and sustainably acceptable level of the way in which our ethics in our economic development happens, our politics contribute to it, meaning the policies that we put in place, let them be sustainable, let them be impossible to be just overturned just like that, and let them be contributing towards going forward. And also the social aspect, which is the social wage, I think we have to really work on ensuring how it is actually manifested so that the person in La Poterie don't feel that nothing didn't happen. These must be people that must be able to say that, yeah, I didn't get this, but I got that. And I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, Tarlie. Yeah. Well, tell you what, we're opening the line a little early on tonight, and I know that a lot of people would want to call and make their contributions. So whereas we would leave the last half an hour for calls, I think it's incumbent that we open up the line a little earlier. I think we've got somebody in the line already. So caller, thanks for holding. Can you please go right ahead?
Yeah, good night, Pastor Worme, good night to the ladies and the gentlemen there. In spite of what all that was said, there's something that we're not taking into consideration. The issue of debt, the debt of the country. And we may be going to debt for nature swap soon, so that might even complicate the situation even more. So that's one point I want to make. The other thing about it, I heard either Dr. Grenade or somebody else said about civil society need to be more kind of strong. We have to be honest. Civil society was destroyed by the ousted, literally destroyed by the ousted administration. They did everything to frustrate once it wasn't in line with their style of governance. So that's one. The other thing about it is that look at what we have done. We have chased people away, like for instance the Paul Graham and these kind of people who was working. We talk about patriotism. Paul Graham was a patriot. We caused him to leave, and there are many other people. So I'm saying that in talking about what rebuilding Grenada or taking Grenada forward, we have to be mindful that either we sat silent or we were complicit in some of those, I would even call it to some extent, atrocities that are happening in Grenada. And thirdly, I do agree that we need a collective approach to solving the problem of Grenada. But I think we also have to prioritize. It's unfortunate that we have two major situations at the moment. One is to rebuild the governance system here, and the other is to be able to protect life. Over the years, this administration, the last administration, have done everything to undermine the environment, to really create, instability. And now, every time a hurricane or something is threatening,
okay,
people are
I'll
going
give you
into
30 seconds. Yeah, sorry, we lost it. We just would like to ask callers to keep your questions or comments rather short, because we suspect that we'll have quite a number of people calling in tonight. Dr. Grenade, you got any reply to that?
Well, thank you, caller. On the question of civil society, I think, yes, we need to sort of reset the button, as it were, on our civil society organizations or faith-based organizations, because our society has been very politicized. And I think this is an opportunity for us to sort of rethink and just repurpose. And there is scope, and I'm sure Dessima could speak to this better than I can, for civil society organizations, new organizations to emerge, old ones to remake themselves, because it's important for citizens to be engaged through organized groups. I think that would be a very important pillar for governance. The caller did speak about prioritizing, and I think as a new incoming government, there would be the need to prioritize priorities. How do you prioritize priorities? That becomes a challenge, but it's not a challenge that's insurmountable. It calls for a lot of planning, looking beyond the horizon, thinking about vulnerabilities that have not yet even shown themselves up, and prioritizing, looking in a real way as to what is there. What did you meet in the Treasury, your institutional capacity in the public sector, and what then is that broad vision? How do you break it down from vision to something that is implementable in a realistic way? And I think that the prioritizing becomes very important.
All right, we've got another call on the line. Caller, good evening.
Good evening,
welcome.
Pastor Worme. Good evening to your panelists.
Good evening. Go right ahead. Keep it short.
I'd just like to ask your panelists a question, please. We've seen the history of the current administration in our country. By and large, we have seen that they have been what I would refer to as a one-term government. And we have seen, yes, after every term that they have served, that they would lose the election 15, well, they would win absolutely no seats after serving for one term. In your honest opinion, what do you think that this current NDC administration needs to do different from past administrations in order to be a re-elected government that is really going to move this country forward?
Yeah, well, I guess the others are going to chime in, but I don't think everything goes sequentially, quite frankly. I think you've got new dynamics, you've got new blood, you've got new perspective with this NDC team, and it does not necessarily mean because one team was ousted for, after one term that you'll find the same thing happening sequentially, but it's an observation that you've made, and who could beat observations anyway?
Yes, caller, thanks for the call. When we think about political parties, let's go back to 1984. The original NNP was constructed in 1984, and by 1987, 1989, it had remade itself. Political parties remake themselves, but it's about learning the lessons from the past. I believe this is a new NDC that can emerge, because leadership becomes very important. And what we have not seen in the past with the NDC is a kind of calm confidence, but assertive and bold leadership, visionary leadership. And we will wait and see, but I think the lessons that the NDC would have to learn, there should not be a disconnect between the government and the party and the people. the participatory governance model that they started with the campaign, I would suggest that they continue. Keep in touch with the people. Keep your pulse on the ground and come back to people. Hear from them. Listen to them. Care for them. I think that is something that this new NDC will have to do. In terms of intra-party conflict, I think that they have to intentionally have instruments and mechanisms within the party and government to ensure that conflict is managed in every political party, as in every organization. In the church, Pastor Worme,
right.
in the church, Pastor Worme, there will be differences of opinion. How do you manage that so it does not escalate into unmanaged conflict? So I think learning from the past becomes very important. But I would not take the burden from former NDC administrations and place on this one. If in 8 short months, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell was able to take a party that was in disarray and give us the outcome that we got, I'm confident in his leadership, in his strategic leadership. And if he can translate that into ensuring cohesiveness in his party, I think this NDC will not repeat the lessons from the past.
Okay, for those who are just listening, not video-wise, we want to let you know that you can give us a call, and the number to call is 440-1252. We've got a call on the line. Caller, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Good night, gentlemen and ladies.
Good night to you. Good evening.
Yeah, the previous caller made us a great statement. I think this country, in my view, wouldn't be an easy country to govern, because the previous government instituted something into the people. I wouldn't say what it is, I guess you people know. So coming now with this new government, it wouldn't be easy. You touched on leadership. I think I heard the last Prime Minister said he didn't want to put the burden on the people by naming a successor by himself. He wanted the people to do that. So that's where the problem with the NNP was, where the leader didn't want to put the burden on the people by naming a leader. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it has to be a sort of amalgamated effort. Yeah, you've got to, as the leadership, show that you're together, show that you have the ability to deal with conflicts. And in fact, when you have the ability to do that, then your people are going to have much more confidence in you, the ability to solve problems and not wash your dirty linens in the public, that sort of thing. So they'll be looking, obviously, to this present administration to see how it handles itself from a leadership capacity. And if they're convinced about that and they're happy about it, I think they're going to have a good fellowship.
Yes.
Yes.
So
We've got another caller in the line. Caller, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. I just calling for the program.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what I want the present administration to make apologize to the nation from with Mr. Nicholas Buffett tell they are going give away the speak to Eugenia Charles for nothing, and where they give away the green leg for nothing, and then they do so much harm. And right now, them is the one responsible for all this produce filing in the country. And Nicholas Buffett was the man come to kill the legacy of the revolution when they dump all the equipment from the revolution in the sea. And right now we want the old Grenada masses, the NDC, the old Grenada masses are going dusty for rich Nicholas Buffett giving Charles for nothing. And we want to apologize, and we want something from the present administration to apologize for how they're causing all these producers filing Grenada by giving away the agro-industry for using Charles for nothing. That's my contribution, and I want them to pay the people on time and service all the loan and service the cap and the gas.
Okay, thank you, caller. I don't know. I think that there are even some of the present individuals who don't have an idea at all as to what you're talking about in regards to Eugenia Charles, of course, the Eugenia Charles, the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister of Dominica. And look, we can't live in the past. I think we've got a future ahead of us. And don't get me wrong, because it is necessary to know what happened in the past and to learn from it. But I think Grenada has a way forward, and we need to at least look to see what we can do to build this country and to ensure that this country gets the respect, not just regionally, but get the respect internationally. Do we have another call on the line? We do have another caller. Caller, go ahead.
Good evening, Pastor Worme.
Good evening to you.
And good evening to your panelists.
Good evening.
Pastor Worme, did you write down the, did you mark the former Prime Minister word, as he tell you, mark my word? Did you do that?
Well, there are a lot of words that he said, so I don't know what you're really referring to about mark his words.
Stephenson, mark my word.
Okay, if you're talking about the interview I had with him?
Yes, that is it.
Okay, yes, so then I know what you're referring to.
Mark my word. The NDC going to lose. We might win, they might win a seat or two, but they're going to lose and we're going to get more votes. Mark my word. Because this Diplomat has destroyed the NDC brand, a brand that George Brizan built, and this man came from nowhere. He parachuted himself down to the NDC and destroyed the NDC. But I want to tell him, I want him to not tell him, that Dick and Mitchell took the NDC 8 months ago, 8 months, and he brought them to success. He is the one who destroyed the house. Right now the house is disarray. He destroyed the house. He has put us into the house. He set the house on fire. So if you had marked his word, let him know that what he said was totally wrong. Thank you.
Okay, yes, I know what you're referring to, and yes, but I don't really want to go there, quite frankly. I think there are a lot more salient things that we should talk about, and that's what we're trying to do on this program, to see how we can help people to understand their individual responsibility and the country as a whole, its responsibility to move forward. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back.
Get away from your daily stress with a Grenada vacation at the Coyaba Beach Resort. Coyaba is located on the world-famous Grenada Beach and boasts 5.5 acres of beautiful gardens. Excellent service, good food and drink, well-appointed rooms and friendly staff in a safe environment. Facilities include 2 restaurants, 2 bars, swimming pool, water sports, tennis, gym and body treatment rooms. Call 473-444-4129.
They are the few, the strong, the elite. Grenada, get ready as our sporting gladiators go for gold and glory at the World Championships. Follow every throw, stride and jump from July 15th to the 24th. Capture the action daily on GBN television. It's the World Championships. The dream continues.
James is going to win it.
When a hurricane watch or warning is in effect, act quickly.
Listen to the media for official information. Set your refrigerator to the coldest temperature to help food last longer. Move electrical devices from areas where they may get wet. During a hurricane, stay indoors. Be mindful that you may lose power and keep listening to the media. Unplug all electrical devices and take off your main switch. This will reduce the potential for damage or fire. Avoid opening refrigerators and freezers, as food will thaw more quickly. Assume all wires are energized and stay away from them. In the event of island-wide damage, Grenlec will restore power to critical facilities first. These include hospitals, police, fire departments, and water supply pumps. For more information, please visit us at grenlec.com.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Get Rubigas. Get cooking. Rubigas, clean, safe, and reliable LPG is the perfect solution for your commercial and everyday needs. For cooking at home or barbecuing, choose Rubigas LPG cylinders. Available in a variety of sizes from 20 to 100 pound cylinders. Rubigas LPG, clean, safe, reliable. Are you cooking with Rubigas?
Get Rubis, get going.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment as you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest. Visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
And welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. Of course, we're looking at the way forward. Grenada has to move along. It has to move ahead. We've had so many challenges over the last few years. And in fact, our history, we're known to be the Isle of Conflict. But we've got such great potential in this country, and we're really not short of it. So we're talking about the way forward, and we have agriculture, we've got tourism, we've got the whole social aspect of it, we've got the spiritual aspect, which we're going to touch on, but we're going to touch on that a little later. Not that it is not significant, it is highly significant, and that's the reason why I'm leaving it for a little later on in the program. But let's look at the way forward, and in terms of our tourism, in terms of our agriculture, in terms of our sports, and the different avenues, that we have to build on in this country. Let's take a quick shot at our international relationships. How important is that?
Okay. Well, you asked me two separate questions. I will tackle.
So let's take international relations.
International relations really refer to the way a country presents itself to the world and build relations. And you're not just engaging in relations with other countries just for the sake of it. You're doing that, so if you sign a treaty, for example, that would speak to fisheries. Suppose you're with the International Maritime Organization or something, you sign a treaty. That means the fisher women and men in Guelph and other parts of Grenada should have their lives, chances improved, because through your foreign relations, you signed the treaty. The treaty is not just to be signed to be on paper. Now, as governments engage with the world, they ask, who should we engage? How should we engage? What platforms should we stand on to engage the world? Now, the how should we engage? I'm a regionalist, and I think the Caribbean community is very important. The OECS is very important, and Grenada has to continue to participate in regionalism, because it's through our collective efforts we build collective resilience, and we can advance as a Caribbean. So I think in shaping an agenda, and Tarlie mentioned earlier about building on what is, not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, not starting all over. Government is about continuity. So in international relations, we have to ask, what are some of the new issues? The environment, obviously. Things like food security. You know, in terms of how you manage transnational organized crime, how you manage pandemics. So countries, particularly small island developing states, cannot on their own navigate the rough waves of the international system. And you know, once I remember, because I teach international relations, and I said to students, as small states navigate the international system, we would encounter sharks and lifeguards.
Right.
Who are the sharks and who are the lifeguards? And can sharks disguise as lifeguards? Your foreign policy has to be crafted in such a way that you know how you present yourself, you know what you want from your international relations, and you choose who you want to engage with and how. I think what happens to many small island states, we do not sufficiently negotiate in our interests. We do not understand sometimes the power that we have. For example, CARICOM countries have 14 votes in international arena. And when countries lobby Caribbean countries on different issues, you want our support here, you want these 14 votes. The United States has 1 vote at the United Nations, and Dessima Williams was a former ambassador. Perhaps she could even speak to this better than I can. But your foreign relations become very important. Your diplomatic presence in the world becomes important. Who represents our interests in the world? And perhaps this is something that we have to think about as a Grenadian people. Who represents our interests? Now, diplomacy is changing. There's a lot that can be done through technology and so forth, but I think we have to be mindful of the importance of our sovereignty. You know, we are a sovereign state, and we have to know what that means in terms, and our sovereignty must never be for sale. Our sovereignty must be priceless. So as we negotiate, as we navigate, we have to do it in such a way with dignity. Even, you know, your grandmother used to say, even if you don't have anything to eat, nobody must know.
Yeah.
You carry yourself with pride and dignity and ethics. Tarlie spoke about ethics. So international relations becomes very important for a country to advance its developmental agenda, because international relations is not just being conducted for its own sake, but every single handshake, every single cocktail, every single summit should have an agenda that advances our interests in the world. And as the world becomes more complex, we'll have what I like to call the multiplicity of complexities in every single sphere. How does a small country maneuver through the multiplicity of complexities in the international arena? It calls for astuteness, it calls for creativity, it calls for relationship building, partnerships. And I think the Caribbean community becomes very important. The Global South, in terms of our relationship with Africa, with Latin America. Europe is changing. How do we position ourselves in terms of a post-Brexit Europe? These things become very important. And I think the foreign service should be staffed with experts who understand trade, who understand diplomacy, who understand global security issues, and who could represent in such a way that the interests of Grenada is advanced in the world.
Oh, how well you've put it. Okay, do we have a caller? I don't want to slip away from this international subject matter. We do have a caller? Do we? Yes, we have a caller. Caller, thanks for holding. Go ahead, please. Okay, we seem to have lost the caller. Yes, Tarlie, Dessima, we'll talk about this a little more, but I'm glad that Wendy, you spoke about Africa. We talk so much about Africa and what Africa means to us and how important that's where we come from. But quite ironically, we have not established that kind of relationship with our African countries, which is just across the Atlantic. We have a call on the line. We come back to this discussion. Caller, good evening.
Good night, sir. And good night to the panelists.
Yes, go right ahead. Make your question or comment short.
But I can't make it short, you know.
Go ahead. Short enough.
Okay. Let me first of all congratulate the new government and coming into office, and I think they have worked very hard. But we've seen a comparison there with what the gentleman said just now that Dr. Mitchell said to you in an interview about the NDC brand and whatnot. And I thought Dr. Mitchell, when he said that, he was a little bit overconfident in saying in the statement he made. But are we not seeing the same thing with the new Prime Minister now, who is a little bit overconfident now with the stand that he's taking? Because it is green time, and yes, the party have worked very hard to reach where they reached there. But are we not seeing the promises and the things that he intends to do could be a little bit exuberant too? Okay. I mean, that's a thought for concern.
Yeah,
both of them are.
Let's be a little fair to the Prime Minister. He's in office just a few hours ago, so it's hard for you to say that he's talking out of sync. Really, this is what he said he's going to do. Then let's see if he's going to do it. But obviously, as maybe one politician is calling for, let's make sure that he gets it done immediately. We all know that obviously it would not be done immediately. So let's be realistic with this one. Okay, so let's go back to our panelists. So we want to continue that. Tarlie, could we have you go back to the subject matter, international affairs, and Dessima, you come in shortly.
Okay, I think you've left Dessima because the doc could have be the anchor on the subject. Let me tell you this: I don't have any doubt in my mind as to the need to focus on getting that economy under your belt so that you will have money to do the things that you have to do. Therefore, even foreign relations, we need focus. Dr. Grenada has said it quite eloquently, but I just want to add to what she said. It must be focus on bringing home the bacon. People should not now be liming in meetings and whether it's Zoom or whatever, traveling here and there and getting appointments because they went to that town hall and they were the MC and all them. No. You actually need, in 2022, 2024, 2025, you actually need people who would be able to do that. Go out there, not just represent, but get. That's what the better of the economies in the developing countries are doing. Their teams are teams of experts, and even when they have figurehead diplomats, the diplomats' support is really people who are going out to get and to bring back. People who understand the market, people who understand the venture capitalists, people who understand the dynamics of what is happening in Europe that is now attacking the CBI program and so on. People who knows how to navigate around those things are who you want in foreign affairs. And to close this, I wouldn't be too long on it, because I believe that in this administration, just like I'm saying, you have to focus on the bacon. You have to focus on the capacity to deliver, meaning that you should have the economy that is having a tax policy in place that can raise the funds, is having a foreign policy in place that can create those relations to bring in the direct investments. I think, and I made a note while the caller was speaking there, the tourism people, the foreign relations people, the trade people, and the finance people, I dare say also the modern tech agro people should not be going out on their own doing different things different ways. All these people are in there. Police and legal and so on, they have important work to do as well. But when you begin to speak about policies, we need the two things. We need the incentives that make sure the right people are doing the things that are there, and the systems to ensure that they do it honestly, that they are capable of doing of doing it, and they do it honorably, but always with the focus in mind that the lady in Concord should be able to get something out of the trip I made.
Yes.
Beautifully articulated. Dr. Williams.
Thank you. Well, there's a little to add, but I want to just include it a little bit. And my suggestion is that, as Wendy has said in the past, there's a lot of emphasis on negotiating or presenting ourselves to the world from the position of small, vulnerable, weak, ex-colonial, and so on. I think the time has come now where countries like Grenada can clearly present ourselves in a position of strength, both individually and in collective. For example, we are small island developing states, yes, but we are large ocean states. We're small island developing states, but look at what we are turning out, whether it's in the Olympics, in global culture, in music, in fashion, in a whole field. We are rising, beyond and punching beyond our weight. So Grenada is small in size, maybe in population, but capable. Our capacity is what matters. And if we approach the international community like that, first of all, you gain more respect, and respect gives you access and resources and so on. But I think so that's one point. The second point I want to make is that there are perhaps two big arenas in which we want to play in the international and the regional. Certainly at the global, we want to help to democratize international relations, because we entered a system 48 years ago that was not as democratic as it is today. There are many more players, many more of our types of concerns, and we want to participate in global diplomacy and global international relations, in a sense, so that we help to inform and to restructure governance. I take the case, for example, of the Security Council reform. People might say, well, how does the lady in Concord benefit if the United Nations changes its composition on the Security Council? It allows for decision-making and decisions to benefit us and our allies, as opposed to just the 5 permanent members, of the original Security Council. Also, at the international level, we want to participate in peacemaking. The war in Ukraine, can small island developing states participate in the diplomacy that will help to end it and so on? And because that's in our interest, because the war in Ukraine has already affected our supply chain, and, perhaps wheat and prices and so on. So I think we're out there, that's sort of the longer and more indirect reason that we are participating, but it's an important one, and I want to put it in there. And then, of course, as has already been said, we participate from the point of view of our national interest. What can we do? What can we benefit from for the nation? And an astute national diplomacy has to balance both. We can't be just out there either as beggars or takers. We have to contribute to the system in which we are participating. So I want to say that on international relations. Another quick point I want to go back to is on civil society. I am thinking more, I'm paying better attention now after the election in the going forward. How are we going to go forward? What's important? Tarlie has been pressing the point about the political economy, the nature of the economic model that that this new party will build. And I think the challenge is around, what we need to change in Grenada, change as in grow, keep, and so on. What do we need to change for a better Grenada? And how are we going to go about it? And as has already been suggested, it is by going to the population for guidance so that we could combine that, we could balance that against regional and international recipes and proposals. So that the people close, the civil society has a unique role to play in that sense. I mean, just take the economy. We hear a lot of the university contributes 20% to the economy. It does. It's very welcome. It's very important. Do you know that civil society contributes 10% to the national economy, right? By what it spends on, poverty relief, working with the disabled, spending for community development. And that's a significant percentage of our national economy. And therefore, we have to think of the role of civil society as one of partnership with the state. And even when we disagree, it's not about hostility. It is about disagreeing and finding, the way forward, finding what can benefit the country from civil society organizations and civil society itself. Because I think we want to get down to a participatory model that can throw up for us outcomes such as enhanced local government. We need local government. There's no reason for somebody in Tivoli or in Granborough to have to call the national representative to pay attention to drains in the community. There need to be more local solutions and local engagement with local concerns. And I think civil society helps that kind of participation, growing and stabilizing the economy for food security. I mean, there are so many growers who can be both supporting growing the national economy as well as providing nutritional security, food security more generally. And what might be needed would be training, markets, startup capital or gap financing and so on. But the ownership of the responsibility for improving Grenada has to be more democratically lodged with the people, in which I think the civil society and the smaller players, for example, and this is my last point, the private sector. When we think of the private sector, whether it's in tourism or in another sector, we think of big multinational organizations and companies in Grenada. But in some of the scholarship we see, the private sector is the informal sector, which is spreading in a place like Grenada. The private sector is the small and micro economies which the GDP caters to. So we have to think in a more democratic way, more inclusive way in the descriptions or even in the conceptualization of what and who we engage in the transformation. It is something that belongs to people, and people can be empowered. That is why free education right up to the tertiary level is important. The state has to educate persons so that they are able to make good decisions, strong choices, understand the importance of what they're doing as part of the bigger whole. But in the final analysis, 100,000 points of productivity and conversation and negotiations and partnering is what will move Grenada forward in a sustainable way. Not 10 actors, but the whole of society in everything possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. William. I know, Dr. Grenada, you had something to say. So you want to chime in? You want to keep it a little on the short side? Yes?
I wanted to, I really agree with both of my colleagues here.
Yes.
Something Tarlie said about foreign relations, about what we get, but I think it's also not just what we get, but what we give. Cultural industries, if we link international relations to the domestic economy, as we think about the new political economy going forward, the cultural industries, what we call the orange economy. We know of the green economy, the blue economy, the orange economy, or cultural piece. What do we give to the world? And the diaspora becomes very important as a pillar in our international relations. And not just to get remittances and get barrels, but to engage the diaspora. We saw it during the COVID pandemic. Let's keep that model and sort of ensure that we advance the idea of the diaspora, not just as a 16th state of CARICOM, but as part of our developmental agenda. Getting knowledge transfer, having our transnational citizens come and go, and our doctors from the diaspora. I heard Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell speak about why can't we have a doctor in the diaspora attend to somebody in Pitimati using technology.
Okay.
I think there's a lot that can happen. It's an exciting time.
Absolutely exciting. Well, we don't have much time remaining on the program, and I did promise that we should chime in and talk about the importance or the importance of or the spiritual arm of our country, so to speak. And while we were offset, both Wendy and I were talking about that and the significance of it. And we talk about the political campaigns, we talk about the ads, we talk about the electronic media, we talk about so many things that combined to make the whole political competition so dynamic and so powerful. But very often we forget a central factor, and that is God. What does God doing this? What part does God play? And we give so much kudos to so many people. We congratulate so many people. We're saying, we talk about the skill and the expertise of so many people. And I think at times that God looks down and he asks, but what about me? Where do I come in? What have I done? What has been my contribution to this country? And I would like to say here, more than anything else, if it were not for Almighty God, we would not be where we are today. And we've got to be very grateful and thankful for his goodness and for all his benefits that he has deposited in our lives individually and by extension as a nation as a whole. So here is what. We've got just 3 minutes remaining, and we want to also get an update on the weather. So Wendy, I give you 30 seconds. Chime in on this about God and the divine aspect of his impact on our country, how important that is.
Well, we are nothing without him, but we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. So I think going forward, I would encourage the government to remain prayerful, to have a prayer arm. The prayer warriors have to continue praying, and we have to know that God dwells in the affairs of men and women, and we have to acknowledge him in all that we do, because without him, we are nothing.
Dr. Williams, let me hear from you.
30 seconds.
30 seconds, not 1 second more.
Yes, I endorse that, and I was very pleased that the Conference of Churches and my own church, the Catholic bishop and the community of priests, urged us to pray for a good outcome, to pray for a good process. I think it is also very evident that there were what can be called, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of prayer warriors, people who prayed for the country, prayed for the candidates, all the candidates, and I think it is very encouraging. Without God, that as an anchor in our spiritual life, our psychological life, I think the struggles will be so much harder. I know there are atheists in Grenada, so, all right. But I think the vast majority of the Grenadian population are prayerful, and that will carry us further in the future.
Okay. Your 30 seconds is gone, Dr. Williams. So, Tarlie, let's go across to you. 30.
Before anything else, he said, "Be still and know that I am God."
Yes.
And he also said that I will not leave you alone. He also said that you go forth, I give you this. I would also tell you what to say. I would also give you the tools. It is my answer that in his acceptance speech, we find 3 words from the Prime Minister elect and installed on that day: God, miracle, and prayer warriors. that means a lot. And for all the words that you said of introduction, for what Dr. Grenade said, and for what Dr. Williams said, I say amen.
Right. And let me just take my 30 seconds and put it in there. There were so many people involved. I'm talking about praying night and day, not just for this election, but by extension for the safety of Grenada and the future of Grenada. And the Bible does say, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. If we put God where he belongs and let him be the central factor in our lives, you know what? He's going to give us directions. He's going to tell us where to go. He's going to tell us when to move. He's going to tell us how to do things. He's going to bring the right people to us. He's going to bring us in the right direction. He's going to show us what we need to do and what we should not do. He's going to show us where our enemies are. He's going to dismantle the armory of the enemies. And Grenada can be a sparkling light of difference in this region and in the world as a whole if we put Almighty God first. I wish I could say much more, really, but I'm sure that you were edified in the discussion here this evening, and I want to thank, of course, everyone who participated. Those of you who called in, we appreciate you very much. And, of course, Dr. Grenade, we want to thank you so very much. Dr. Williams and Tarlie, we want to thank you so very much. God bless all of you. Always nice to have you on board. Those of you who called in, we want to thank you so very much. But let's go across. We're going to get an update of this weather system that we've got affecting Grenada. God bless. Good evening.
Couple areas of interest in the tropics, but there are now advisories for potential Cyclone 2, which is formerly Invest 94L. The system's still not very organized as of Monday afternoon, but it certainly looks like it will become more organized and strengthen, and that's why tropical storm warnings have been issued for Trinidad, Tobago, and Grenada. So some slow strengthening is expected in the next couple of days, and this could possibly become a hurricane on Friday as it moves gradually to the west and northwest, but it doesn't look like we're going to see any direct impacts on the United States. But the conditions, as you see, are going to go downhill in the warning areas as the system continues its move. Right now, those tropical storm force winds extend out around 60 miles from the center, but that, of course, is going to expand. When it comes to the rainfall totals, we could wind up with some really big ones, expected to vary anywhere between 1 and 6 inches, and then some of the heavier totals expected across Central America.
How is a walk for health, a children's sports day, a diabetes awareness area?
They are the few, the strong, the elite.